Okay, my friends, Roger, Mudfossil University. You know that I am deep into chemistry and the biology of, how mud fossils petrified. And the building materials are down in South America. They had different phases. They used different types of stone at different types of periods in their construction phases. And I'm thinking to myself, why would they do that? Because they literally used tendons during one phase, and they used literally bloody clots during another, red and black and white. And originally they used these molded big stones. After that, they used these porous-looking black and white and red stones in patchwork. Very cool. Anyway, this is the story about it. And this is all about how the weathering and the rock properties extremely well done. And I am going to show all of the information about the different types of stones they had, because I have all these different types of stones here, pretty much. Like these things here, I have all that sort of stuff here in different, in other words, there's nothing real special here. And there's other stuff that they have no clue about how granite formed, the homogeneous looking granite. I'm going to just show you a picture of that. We're going to end up going back to this in deep detail, but I got sidetracked, which I always do, and I find this much more interesting. So we're going to go back to this, but before we do that, we're going to go into a guy that is absolutely brilliant. And I was going to just clip here and clip there, but I'm going to go through the whole thing. It's going to be, I don't know, an hour long or more. All right, if somebody says I have a granite countertop and they show you something like that, that is natural. That was from a living creature at one time or some kind of biology. However, there are other types that are ground up, and all this stuff was ground up into a homogeneous mess, and I have that in my kitchen. You see that? That's ground up flesh. You saw that other one I showed you that had all of the different patterns in it. Well, if you ground it all up, that is what you get. And then you say to me, Roger, why would they do something like that? Well, here's why they would do it. Because they extracted the metals. And this is my own counter. All right, that is basically, well, I didn't look to every inch of the countertop, but that's almost the only piece of metal in that countertop. Now, what is that piece of metal just doing there? I can tell you what it's doing there. It's attached to some blood, which is the magnetite portion of the blood. The reddish portion is the hematite portion. The little chunks of bone and tendon are all that. All right, can you see that? That's not natural. What will cause that? What would cause this? There's no metals in here. They ground it all up. They extracted the metals. They were alchemists. They knew what they were doing. There's metals in everything. There's metals everywhere in everything because they're in the transition metals of blood. They did this, and then, like, that's ferrous oxide of the vein type blood. This is red blood, and that never gets really chunky. The black blood turns into little hard iron bits. And that's what it is. That's all it is. And my countertop, and I have a lot of countertop, and I looked around, pretty close, not every little inch, but I didn't see any other than that as far as metals go. All right? And there certainly was no gold or anything like that in there. And I don't know what that is. Probably silver or something. All right, I'm going to make some statements about tendons and all that business and how they made these walls. They had machines here. They could grind up this flesh, and they were cutting these slabs to make the walls. They were obviously wet when they did this because the machinery that they had sunk in. It was designed to work in this wet terrain, and it sunk in until the traction jobbers took over, and they drove it up, and they cut these slabs. They must have had some kind of a hook. This is not the only place. They did it in many places. And then they left with these machines. They're not here anymore. See, that's the same machines. And I think this is Bulgaria. And this is, if this didn't turn into selenite, if this turned into mud, you would see the exact same thing here. That is what is inside of tendons. Only this tendon turned into glass, literally, selenite. But these would have been, see, it's exactly the same as that. And that's what it would have been, an abrupt tendon. And they cut these slabs of tendon. And here's some more. See, this is Fuerte de Sampiata, Bolivia. This is where they cut in these slabs. They drove right up there. It's the same machines they use everywhere, it looks like to me. You see that? That's a tendon. And I'll show, I can virtually prove it. There is some blood here and there. You can see a little bit of blood. They cut these slabs, obviously when they were somewhat wet, and they cut them out of here, and they made these walls back here with them. What they made the walls for, I have no idea. Either they were a whole batch of defensive lines that they could, I don't know. That's what these tendons are made of. Exact same stuff. It's CaCO3 with some minerals and metals in there, a little blood, that red iron oxides and so forth, because that's what they are. But primarily, it's the very strongest of the building materials. This is the best building material. Now, I've always said that these walls were made from wet flesh, which sometimes it's tendon, sometimes it's muscle, and then later in this phase, they used the red and black and white blocks, which is like what I just showed you that ground up, only they had it and they just cut it because it was already just dried out. The stuff that I showed you that was all ground up, I believe was right after the flood. They didn't have to do much, they just ground it all up and they extracted the metals. Now that is blood right there. That's blood. This is this piece right here. You see it? And it's expanded out here so we can see it. This is the fleshy material and tendons and so forth. That's actually the bone. And they cut this a real bad spot. And this one up here is just absolutely rotten. But this is literally flesh and tendon. And I know what these bumps are, these bumps that are all over the place, that they can't understand, these little bumps that are hanging off of these things. They're tendon tabs. Remember I told you that slabbed it and then they break the little tabs off. That's why you see these bumps sticking out of them. If you look at the bumps, you can actually see the organic material in the center. That tab runs through a Chinese finger trap to a ball that would have been anchored there. That's ripped out, and that is an injury, and that probably is quite painful. Now, of course, these are extremely small in our body, but that is a tendon anchor, which I don't know where it was going in the body, but what it does is it anchors to bone or somewhere else, and then your muscle pulls, and it can pull against this, but when it comes back, it stays to this anchor spot. Well, this somehow got ripped out of that hole right there. And they have them all running right down there. Now what they did was when the people died, these creatures died. I'm sorry, they died in the flood. They were preserved from the salt waters. They laid around for a long time. They came up and they drove over them with machines. I'm going to show you. They drove right over the top of these tendons. They cut them up with slabs. They took the tendon slabs, the tabs, and they just left them there. You see that? Those are the tabs. These are gigantic things. And they molded them, I think, while they were still wet. They kept them still wet, and they just molded them right in place. This is all blood and so forth leaking out of here. They say, well, that's just ferrous oxide. Well, that's what blood is. You see those? Those are tendon tabs. And they had a little strap and a ball that anchored. And that's what made this be able to pull back and forth. I'll show you the anatomical. This is natural. That's natural. These things form in blocks. You see that right there? That's selenite, but those were tendons. And they have, you see, that's blood. This is what they do. This is an abrupt transition. If you can see through here, you see that? That is an abrupt transition from a big, big, heavy-duty tendon. And that's the blood. Same thing like this is right here on that. And they break flat like this. You see it break? They break flat as a pancake. See that straight across? I didn't put that there. That's how they break. I could snap that across. And that's how they make them. That's just the way they are. And the tendons and the muscles and all that, they form in blocks. So when you see a lot of these blocks, you think, oh boy, they did a lot of work. No, they just lifted it up. Well, everywhere we see all these hex fibers that are bundled together, this is exactly what they are. They are tendons. And each one of them, they're separated from each other. They have nothing to do with volcanic extrusion or any of that business. That's the only way they can account for any of this stuff is to make up some nonsense, and then they will not address reality. That's the key. All right, I'm firing up the microscope right now. We're going to be looking at these two fingertips. Now, don't forget, I claim this one came from space, and that was a fingertip, and this also is a fingertip, identical. Do you see the pattern? Can you see the different? Do you see the sameness pattern here? Watch. You see on the side, you see that little hook? You see that little hook? That is what they do. That is what the pattern of these fingertips are. They're identical. Now, what is also identical? This is where the blood, the arterial blood goes. Artery, artery, artery. Vein, vein, vein. Okay, now, same thing here. Artery, artery, exploded. Not just dried out like this one. You see this? And we're going to see this in a microscope. You'll see this is blood. Blood, blood. Dried blood. This exploded from this meteorite when it came through space. That's my contention. That's what I'm saying. And if somebody wants to take a look at it and see what they think, that's fine. And I can tell you another thing right now. You see that little ball right there in that stalk? Identical to Comet 67P. And I show that in the video as well that I've done. Now, we're going to be looking at the microscope, and I'm going to show you this fabric, and we'll find some of it here that didn't burn up. There'll be some spots in here that will still have the fabric of life. So a lot of it cooked off coming in, but it really didn't get too blanched up. You know, it heated up enough to explode the blood out of there. That had to explode. That's a moisture explosion. That is an explosion of moisture. I'm going to say it 1,000 times because it's what it is. It's not just what this is dried up. All right, totally, totally, totally different situation. And we're going to look at it uno momento. Same thing, same structure, same design, a little smaller, and terrestrial. Bigger from outer space. And I have another one here that's a tiny little lung that came in from space too. And it's magnetic. You see? They get magnetic from coming through space, cooking off the ferrous oxides. This is a little lung, and I'll show you, it's still got blood in it. And if you want to see the biggest iron meteorite that ever came out of space, that is a lung too. It'll look just like this, basically. It'll have all these holes in it and everything, only it'll be the blood, which is iron, will have cooked and smelted off, but all of the structure will still be there. And I'll show you that one too. We're dealing with something nobody's ever expected. Nobody could even consider this. It's just that it happened to me by accident, and I am presenting, and I want it to be considered now because it's real. And I had DNA tests done. I got gigantic fingertips. I got gigantic creatures all over my property. And they're everywhere. I'm not anything special. All right, so let's take a look in the microscope. All right, this is the terrestrial fingertip. And these are the different colors they have. And they all have the same look to them. This is the fabric of life. Okay, you see it? You see those colors? Black and red and white and so forth. And they call that feldspar. It's not feldspar, it's the fabric of life. Now, this was the terrestrial one. Now, I'm going to move it around to the other side, which we can see some. This is where the blood was, in these holes. Okay, it blew out. Now, here's another hole where it blew out, right up here. You see that? See down in there? Now, if I put some water in there, it'll rehydrate, and you'll almost see the blood. You'll see some blood come out of it. Now, you see, that's all blood there, too, blood there. Now, and that's the real clot of blood right there. Let me see if I can home in on that a little bit. You see it? That's where the blood clot is coming out. Now, and then there's one right at the very tip, which is like just a solid rock of blood. See it? And that's what they are. I mean, my logo is a hand, and it shows where all the blood comes up. It comes up one side is the artery, and the other side is the vein. And that's why you have these 3 spots on one side and 3 spots on the other. And only this side blows out because that's where the red blood is. The other side is this vein side, which is right here. Hold on, I'll show you what. This is what the vein looks like. It doesn't do anything. Here it turns black. There's the, whoops. There's the vein side. All right, that's all it does. Here's the other part of the vein up here. Nothing there either, see it? Now I'm going to turn that fingertip all the way over to the other side where the red blood is. That's the black blood, the vein blood. And it doesn't blow out because it's got a clamp on there. Now I'm going to turn it completely over. So here we go across the top, all the way across the top, all the way over to the other side where all the blood is. And there's the blood. This is the arterial side. See the red blood? This one leaked out all over the place. That's the center of it, but this is all the red blood. Now there's one spot. Here's the other spot down here. It ran out everywhere. All right, that's the red blood. All right, so that's the one, the terrestrial fingertip. Now I got the other one down below. Hold on. This one here, you can, let me see. Let me get another light on here. You know what? Hold on. This is where it gets tricky. You got to get the light correct, and you know this is not meant to be this far away from the specimen. To be perfectly honest with you, but you can see easily. You see this black spot? What's that black spot doing there? Well, that boiled off because there was some moisture underneath there, and it was some red blood that turned black because it burnt it off. Now, you see over here, this is where there was an artery or something, the red blood. Okay? Now, this is the side where the blood blew out. You see that? That's blood. Now I'm going to get down in here and we're going to take a quick look. This is just all saturated with blood, and it exploded out of here. You follow me? That didn't just dry up and bleed out. That exploded coming through space. Now if I put some water on there, which I will, you will see it rehydrate pretty quickly. Hold on, let me get a little brush. All right, now, what you're going to see is that turn a little more red because your blood wants oxygen. And when it gets to oxygen, it gets redder and redder. So that's what we're looking at there. But you can see that's red blood. The other side was not red blood. But I have some of them that literally the blood leaked on my counter. That right there is a blood supply. That's a blood supply over here. So you take a pin drill and go in there into these arteries, and you're going to get very clean red blood out of there. You know, of course, here's what I did when I took my samples. I knew where the arteries were. All right? I've been doing this a long time. I knew where they were. This is 5 years ago. And what I did was I broke off pieces, and then I drilled in to the artery with a pin drill. Obviously, I cleaned it up and all that stuff first. We use PCR DNA amplification, so we had to be very clean, obviously. I did it myself. Nobody else can take credit against me, or I got to tell you what happened. The place that did the DNA testing said, they were getting upset at me because people were saying they said I had giants. I never said they said I had giants. I said they said what I sent them was human DNA. I said they were giants because I took them from the giants. I know what they were. There was no question what they were. So that's what I'm talking about. So I can't, if something's wrong, it's my fault. Not the lab. The lab did it, and he said it was dense. And it's obviously going to be dense. It's coming right out of the red blood. No. So that is, and that's from outer space. This is not something that came off of here of the Earth. Now here's the other side. Nice blacked out spot. Hold on, let me get a wedge there. And you can see. That's what happens when it toasts like a blowtorch, and that's exactly what it was. Now, there are going to be spots. Let me see if I can find one. This one here looks like it's a little. There it is, right there. There's a good spot. That is exactly what they would call feldspar. Only this came from outer space. All right, what are we looking at? We're looking at that right there. That's the fingertip. It's this fingertip right here. Right. And the other one was this fingertip right here. They are twins. All right, one from outer space. Look, you see that? It could be, they're exactly identical. One's just a little smidge smaller. The blood blew off from the same spots. Only this one boiled, like I said. Even look at this hook over here. Look at this hook over here. See? No difference whatsoever. Zero. Zero. All right, so that's my claim from outer space, terrestrial, blood. Blood we could get right now. Now, this also is from outer space, I believe. That's my claim. And it is already smelted off enough where it is basically iron. Well, not completely, but there's enough that it's, well, you can see it, right? You can see that, yeah. All right, now, when I'm going to look at this in a microscope, I'll show you. First we'll look at it dry, and then I'm going to wet up these wet spots, because this right here this is a lung, just like that's a lung. All right? And these are the cavities in the lung. This is burnt up a little more, well, it came through space, so it turned it more metal. But these are the same sort of things like you have here. All right? Now, if you look up, I think it's called Williamette's meteorite, giant iron meteorite. Look that up. It's this. Only it's smelted into iron where all that blood was. You'll see it. There's no question. The biggest iron meteorite ever found is a lung. All right, we're going to be looking at that maison me. Hold on. All right, that's that little lung. It's got the little iron lung. Now, you see that? That's blood. These are all the alveoli. It's cooked off. That was the pleura on the lung. You see this little fabric-y looking stuff? Now, I'm going to put a little water on there. All right, now, give it a second to settle in. Let me get my brush working here. Hold on, where'd the brush go? I got to work in the dark, otherwise you can't see anything. There it is. Okay, now. What I'm doing is I'm swishing that water around, and you can see it's blood. All right, hold on, let me dry it up just a second, and then we're going to come right down on top of it. Okay, so here it is. And the black stuff is basically got a lot of iron in it. There's structure to it because it's the structure of the lung, but a lot of the iron that was in the blood that was in there has cooked off. All right, now let's come down right on top of it. right, take it easy, slow down. All right, you can actually see almost the blood cells themselves. Now I gotta back the light down, 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 down. Now, you see that? That's respiration. That is respiration right there. This is the lung tissue. And these are the alveoli. Normally the lung tissue would have been on everything. These were close to the surface, so they cooked off. Now, but you're looking into the alveoli. These are all the little cavities where blood ran, and that is, it looks to me like you can see the blood vessels or the blood cells, or they're the alveoli squamous cells or whatever. Hold on, let me get a little closer. Squamous cells coat all the very fine linings where respiration has to happen, transpiration, where things have to move in and out. And I think that's what we're looking at there. I'm telling you, and that's where the air ran through there. I don't know exactly how to start, but trust me, that's what this thing is. That is what this thing is. Let me find there's a really red spot here somewhere. There's all holes all over the place. Anyway, that's what this is. This is a lung. I can't stay on this thing forever, but that's what, look at it. Look at this. See that? That's where it ran in and out. And this is magnetic, and this is all where the blood has turned to magnetite. Very interesting stuff, this mud fossils. All right, I said the giant iron meteorite. There it is right there. I believe it's called a William Met meteorite, and it's the most giant iron. And this is the same thing. It's a lung. That is a lung. Now, if you look at that carefully, you can see there's red spots in there. You could literally drill inside these areas. There's red blood left over. See how this is real red blood here? That'll be inside there. There's going to be channels in there that are plugged up, and inside there there'll be some still red blood. Right? And even in, well, let me show you. Now, the other place that's loaded with blood is hearts and livers. Now, I don't know what that is, but I can tell you what that is and what that is. That's an artery, and that is a vein. And that they smelted coming into our atmosphere. And all of this, these are all different metals. You see the different crystal color, patterns, and the different, like, dark and light and silvery looking. So those are different metals, and that's what transition metals are in your body. You are loaded with them. Now that is blood, red blood. This is the vein blood, the black blood, and that's you know, anybody's going to tell you, oh yeah, that's a meteorite. There's no question what it is, and it came in. Here's the deal: when meteorites come in, they could come in from different angles. They can be going against the atmosphere, or they can be going with the atmosphere. They can coming in at night when the atmosphere is not charged. They can be coming in the day when it's real charged up. They can skip and do this and do that. They can come in at a certain angle, certain, you know, a ton of different things can happen. And you're going to get this one here. I don't know how it came in so special that it just blanched it. It must have been coming in at night, and it must have been coming in with the rotation of the Earth and falling with it in. And that's all I can take from that, because there's just not enough damage to this that you would expect. That's my take. Now, this is not my picture. They show this as the oldest material in the solar system. This is a meteorite. That's a vein. I mean, artery. And that was where the vein was, I believe. But all these little chondrules, they're not chondrules. Those are interstitium balls. I discovered these in mud fossils. I'm serious. I know, it's just insane. It really is insane at this point. You see that? These are the tendon balls, the interstitium balls. This is the skin, and if it was an extremely white, pale skin, it would be white, and then there would be red flesh underneath, and then there would be all these balls and these straps. Well, the balls are tough as hell. They do not go away. The fluid-filled bags just go away. The reddish collagen bundles, they just sort of erode along with the fluid-filled bags, but the balls will drop out of here, but they won't erode like the rest of the stuff. So if this was an ocean and it was eating away at it, you would see skin, then you would see flesh, and then you would see the balls, because the balls are the tough spot. And here's exactly what it is. Now, I discovered this in the mud fossils. Gil Headley and I worked together on it, and he says, yeah, it's fascia. And then they finally discovered it in 2016 or 2018. They said, yes, it's a new organ system, a brand new, they never found before. And here it is. And I'm telling you, the Earth is just so unbelievably new now because nobody expected this. That is the white skin of a white-skinned creature. That is the red flesh with the tendon balls or the interstitium balls all laced in there. Everything's eroding away. The skin will turn into mud. The balls are eroded out here, and they are being covered by different fungi and different well, here, I'm going to show you something. This is crazy, because I've been talking to people. I say, watch out for this. You know, whenever you see red moss growing, it's growing out of blood. That's a little tiny lung. I just took the dog out and I picked up this lung. They come up through the frost heaves. Can you see that? Hold on, let me see if you can see that. Because it's unbelievable that this moss will grow on that lung forever because there's blood in there. Not only that, I got another one over here that's been here for years. Years and years, and still has moss growing on it. And here's another one. Wait till you see this. This one here is a no-toe. You see that right there? That's where the heel bone is right there. That is where the leg comes down. It's a foot. That is a foot. I'm sorry, they are. They were a whole different species than us. This one here is extremely eroded, but it does have, it is what it is. And in addition to that, I have them in really, see, these are where the toes, but they're inside. And that's where the bone is, and the bone is feeding off the blood. This has been in the shop here for years. Here's another one. It's in perfect condition. You see this? These are new species. That's a no-toe. The toes are in there, but that's the shoe. I mean, not shoe. It's not a shoe. And that's where the fibia would have sat on the side, and that is the same place like I just showed you on that other one, only this one doesn't have moss growing out of it. All right, but it could have if it was stuck in the mud forever. This one, I don't know how. I got them in such perfect conditions, it's scary. I got to be honest with you. It's like somebody put them here on purpose. I mean, it's just, and the ones I have are just stunning. And they're DNA tested, certified as human, 2, 3 of them. And there's 3 different ones. It's a big change. I guess that's all I could say.